What's going on, everybody out there? Wanted to take a minute and go over some training regarding the fun world of bank draws and scope of works. My name is Brady. I'm with DowBoss out here in DFW, and we specialize in helping people find deals, fund and then fix and flip their deals here in the Dallas area. So Ollie is not going to be joining me today. I'm going to be doing this one on my own. So hang tight, take some notes. We're going to cover a little bit of information on if you're new in this game, or you're, just have a little bit of experience when you're dealing with purchasing a home that you're going to fix and flip. In most cases, you're going to be dealing with a draw system, either from a private lender or from a hard money lender, meaning you've given them some type of budget and you've given them what they call scope of work of all the budgeted items that you're going to do to that house. And then you're going to essentially start working and then get reimbursed for the work you've done. And that's called a bank draw, or a draw just in general. Again, if you're using a private lender, that's how it would be structured. So how do you do that? It's not fun. It's the part of the business that no one really likes, but it's necessary because that's how you get things done and how you get things paid for. You've got workers to pay. You've got materials to buy. You've got a lot of things going on when you're doing a fix and flip. So we're going to kind of go through some of that here over the next few minutes. So hang tight as we jump right in. Let's see here. Yeah. You all break that out? Yeah. All right, let's do this. All right, so the very first step in this whole process is having a scope of work. Now, there's two different versions. There's a full scope of work where you get down to the nitty gritty. I'm talking how many doorknobs, how many plug covers, and yada yada. And then there's what we call the simple version, which is, here's my simple expectations, estimates, if you will, of those items. So you're covering everything from beginning to end, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But every hard money lender is going to have a different form. I've tried over the years to keep one process, but they always want it in their format, and so some are more complicated than the others. I just tell them this is how we do it. I've done enough to where I can walk in and say I need this, this, and this, and I can estimate it pretty well. When I do a walkthrough, by the way, of a property, I take a checklist with me, and I check with all the items that are going to need to be addressed, replaced, repaired, and so that when I sit down and put together my scope of work, I'm pretty thorough and pretty accurate on it. So, but when you're doing that, when you think about flipping a house, it really starts after you've gotten the house purchased. The very first thing you do, outside of if you need permits or any of those kind of things, is whatever work is, number one, it's typically going to be demolition. Now, if I'm having foundation work done on the property, I will do that first because foundation work tends to do some other damage at times. And I will have them come in and do that foundation work. Or if I've got plumbing that needs to be done under the house, I'll do that before I do demo, before I do anything else. I'll just get that done, get that out of the way. But assuming a normal property, the very first thing is demo. Get your dumpster out there, have it ready the day after closing, if not the day of, sitting there in the driveway or the front of the house, and then have crews lined up to get in there and demo out everything they can. Everything that's old, nasty, you're taking out, get it all done. It may even be two or three dumpsters full. So you got to stay on top of getting those dumpsters replaced if they get full, and just have your crew going in and over the course of 3, 4, 5 days, get in there and get that house kind of gutted out and ready for next step. So when you think about it, you're going to demo the house, then you're going to do your initial framing, that your changes you're making to layout. You're going to do your primary or your initial rough in plumbing and electrical, and then you kind of flow through this process. Sheetrock comes in, texture, and then paint, and then you're going to get into flooring and tile work and bathrooms, and then next thing you know, you're on the back side of it, and you're doing cabinets, and you're finishing up your plumbing and electrical, and you're starting to do all the fine-tuning pieces, and then you're done, stage it, get it on the market, and sell it. So all throughout that process, you have needs for money, and you're going to need to get bank draws processed. So you have to order the bank draw and get it requested, and then the bank draw has to be processed. Now, some hard money lenders are easier than others when it comes to that stuff. So make sure that's one of the things you ask any hard money lender that you're going to work with. Ask them what their process is for getting draws to you, and how fast can they do it, and how hard is it for you to request it. Okay, some of them just pictures, send it to them, upload it in a system, boom, they send you the money, you're reimbursed. Because remember, you're out of pocket this money. So I typically say it takes about 20 grand to get you going, and then the draws will kind of keep coming in. You'll get that 20 grand back on the very back end of the property when you're done. So you're kind of floating that 20 grand through the whole time. I even need 30 depending on your budget. Because you've got a lot of things to buy, and it gets challenging when you need to buy, for example, you need to buy appliances, and they're 6 grand or 7 grand, and you may not have them for a couple of weeks as you order them, but you're out that money, right? And you don't get the money back until they can see that they're in the house and installed. So you have to really balance out things like windows. They have to be ordered ahead of time. You're going to have to budget that as an item that you're going to be out of pocket for a while until those windows are in. So you have to think through those kind of things. Typically, a lot of things you can have installed within a few days. You get your money back with a few days after that, so you're not out of pocket too long. But it can hold up a property. It can keep things slowed down and keep you from hitting your timeline goals. So you want to be able to have some flexibility, whether it's putting stuff on credit card, whether it's your own cash flow, a cash account, savings account, investment account, loan, whatever, to kind of make sure you keep that money going. And of course, just make sure you're tracking all those expenses and those receipts and such. So let's take a moment and look at a simple scope of work on a property we're working on right now, or about to start working on, and let's go through it a little bit in detail and talk about bank draws as we take a look at it. All right, so we're taking a look here at this spreadsheet, and you can see here as we look at them, I'm going to try to zoom this in a little bit and see if it'll be better for you to see that. So as you're looking at this spreadsheet, this is actually one of our lenders called Boomerang. This is their spreadsheet, okay, and it basically has an outline. If you look at the amounts on the descriptions on the left, or the different items, then the amount that we've estimated for that is in the third column, and then the columns beyond that are draw 1, draw 2, draw 3, draw 4. These are basically as you request them and they send you money. That money then goes into that column, and then on the far right, it will start telling you how much is gone for that particular category or item. And then the very bottom of the spreadsheet, you will see, as I'm talking about over here, you will see as it goes down, you will see it deplete your balance. Okay, so what really needs to happen in this spreadsheet actually is this needs to come all the way down to here. This needs to come down to here because you have more items here than in this case than they had in their system. So bring all these down here. This is, you have to modify these spreadsheets all the time because of the fact that, you know, no house is going to ever be duplicated in terms of this kind of stuff. So you're going to have, you know, more items on one home than you do on the other, and so on and so forth. So you have to try to stay on top of that with just, you know, doing it as much as I've done. You kind of just know. So looking again at this list over here, okay, on the right hand side. So I'm looking at this list here. I've got demolition, dumpster, landscaping, cleanup, pool service, framing, sheetrock repair. You know, we got all these different aspects, and I try to put them in order as much as I possibly can, but obviously, you know, for the sake of time, sometimes you just kind of have a checklist and you go, okay, I got to make sure everything is in here. Like I've got appliances way up here, but in the order of time, appliances would be more way down here, right? You know, because you're doing those pretty much last. But so there are no necessarily real order, but I try to start, you know, demos first, dumpsters in there, cleaning up landscaping. And these are always going to change per house. A lot of times I may not have cleanup landscaping in there. This house is going to need that. So now the one thing that's different here is you will see a total amount. Okay. You know, there are, you know, different formats in which you've got materials and then labor and then a third column with both of those added together. And that's where it can get really, really complicated because, for example, the perfect example of this is flooring. So you buy flooring, you know, let's say you're buying whatever wood flooring or whatever kind of flooring you're buying, and it's $2 a square foot. Okay. And you got 3,000 square feet. So you got $6,000 in flooring. Well, it's not going to put itself in, right? So now you've got to hire somebody that may charge you $2 a square foot to put it in. So now you've got another $6,000 in labor, but it's typically to one. That's typically to one provider. It may not be. A lot of times we buy the material and then we hire somebody to put it in because it's cheaper to do it that way. So that's where it gets complicated. There's also times when you have people, for example, most of the time when we do a project, we have at least one or two people that are basically on our team, if you will, and they are paid a weekly amount and they do a variety of things all week long. So it's not really a payroll type scenario. They are paid as a contractor, but I can pay them a lot more affordably if I pay them for a full week. So I'm paying them a daily rate if they work per day, say $200 a day, $300 a day, whatever that day, their daily rate. These are highly skilled people that can oversee subs, but also be working on the property at the same time. So in other words, they may be someone that knows how to do plumbing, electrical, framing, all the little stuff that needs to happen, putting in cabinets, putting in appliances, hanging lights, doing all that kind of stuff. And I'm not having to pay them as a service or as one project. I can pay them weekly throughout the project and get a lot more done. And that gets challenging. A good example of that is if I hire a tile guy to come in. So let's say I spend $3,000 on tile material, but I got a shower to do. Okay. And he's going to say to me, if he's just a tile guy, I'll do that shower for $2,000. $2,000, if you break it into $200 a day, which is a pretty good rate for a worker. Well, how many days do I get out of that guy if I pay him $2,000? I get 10 days, right? Well, any tile guy worth his salt is not going to take 10 days to do that shower. So he knows he can go in and probably do it, depending on obviously the size of the shower and extent of it all. But if it's a typical master shower, you're talking 5 days. Okay. So tops 5 days. So I'm going to get it done in 2 or 3. As a matter of fact, if you're paying them per project instead of per day, if you're paying them per project, then their goal is to get in and get it out as fast as possible. I mean, would you like to get paid, you know, $2,000 for working for 1 day if you could? No shower gets done in 1 day, by the way. But, you know, the point being is if I can hire someone that knows that has that skill and I'm paying him $1,000 a week and he can do it in 5 days, well, then I've just paid $1,000 for the shower, not $2,000. So I've saved 50% of my money. So I budget with that in mind because I have people like that I can bring in on a project that will work for an amount per week. And they work hard, and they've been with me for years. They know how to do a lot of different things, and they can knock things off that list instead of me having to hire someone to come do it that's going to charge me as a project. Okay, so those are things that as you're doing this business, that if you're local, you can really do that well. If you're not, then it's hard. You're having to hire a turnkey guy, a contractor that's now charging you 20-30% over the budgeted amount just to, quote, oversee it. And he's not even likely to be there all the time because he's got multiple projects that he's doing along with yours. So, anytime you can get local and get local help where you're subbing out things and you go, okay, you're going to do demo, you're going to do framing, you 2 or 3 are going to work all week, every week is subs that work for me, and you're going to do all these other things. And then you can keep your costs down versus a turnkey guy who's going to have to go out and do the same thing you were going to do. He's going to sub out most of it, and he's going to look for people that can do it on a project base. And then he may have a few that work on a weekly base, but you're paying them 20-30%. If you think about a $100,000 job that you're now having to pay a general contractor to oversee, that's $25,000 or $30,000 more that he wants to oversee your project. And I can tell you to this day, I have never met a project coordinator or a GC, excuse me, that was worth his salt. They would never be there. I would be there more than they would be there. And I finally got rid of them and just said, you know what, if I'm paying you $25,000 to $30,000 to oversee the property that you're never there for, then I'll just pay somebody else to be there every day and make sure things are getting done, and I'll still save money. So that's kind of what you do when it comes to getting properties, done and getting them budgeted. Okay, so and no budget's perfect. For example, let's say we thought this property here, as you can look at this spreadsheet, I'll bring it back up. Let's say this property is going to run us typically, let's see here. I'm going to look at this. I'm trying to remember what the number was. Slide over here. And so slide over here and go down. And we have a budget of $86,400. Okay, $86,400 for all the work I've got listed here on the left. Well, the odds are pretty good that unless we get some breaks, that we will be at that number. We might even be 10, 15, even 20,000 over it, depending on if something major comes up or whatever. So you have to kind of budget that in mind, but you also got to balance that with getting your deal approved and getting it funded. So there's a lot of balancing acts here that take place. But when it comes to bank draws and when it comes to getting money on a regular basis, you have to have that scope of work done, because the hard money lender is going to base the draws off of what you put there. Now, some hard money lenders are easier to deal with than others, and they will let you play with those numbers a little bit, but you'll never be able to get more than whatever that total number I just showed you was, 86,400. So you have to you can tweak that a little bit. So let's say you put $3,000 for demo, but it turns out it's going to be $4,000. Well, then that grant has to come off of something else down the road in order to get that $4,000. And you have to adjust that spreadsheet and adjust that draw system with your hard money lender to make that happen. And they can walk you through whichever hard money lender you're using. They generally will have either some type of video training or an orientation you can go through with someone that will kind of walk you through how to do the bank draws and how to make those adjustments. Okay. So once you have got your scope of work, and once you have your budget, and once you kind of have the first phase lined up, that's going to be demo, cleaning up landscaping if it's needed. In this case, a pool needs to be completely clean and brought up to date. So that's going to be in that first phase. And then we've got some leveling that needs to happen on the flooring. That's probably going to be in the first phase. And then framing will come after that, typically, depending on how the contractor working it wants to do it. Well, then I need to get all those numbers in my head and know that if I have startup money, then okay, I could go ahead and get started. But I got to be really tight and really careful, because I want to immediately, when I know the property, when I know that phase or those phases of work are done, unless I've got a bunch of money, I can cover everything in the bank, which is great if you do, because you'll get reimbursed on your own. But if you need that money from the bank draw to make your project go smooth, you have to be thinking ahead of time. Great analogy that I've heard before is, if you've ever had the luxury of driving on a NASCAR track. Okay, if you've ever been lucky enough to do that, I have. I used to own a Corvette, and one time we went out and did some training for about a half a day, and they let us spend about 2 hours racing the track here at Texas Motor Speedway. And it was an amazing experience. Never forget it. And I remember being trained as I sat in that classroom, and they talked about a NASCAR driver. They're going so fast that when they come out of turn 4, and they're coming down the home stretch heading towards turn 1, that their brains, when they're coming out of turn 4, are already thinking about turn 1 and what needs to happen. Meaning they're going so fast that their brain and their body are at 2 different time zones. So their brain is moving faster than their body can. And if their brain doesn't start working on turn 1 while they're finishing turn 4, they won't be able to make the physical changes to the car to adjust to turn 1, and they'll wreck. So it's crazy. And sure enough, even driving my own Corvette, which goes a lot slower than a NASCAR does, even going 120, 130 miles an hour on a track, sure enough, as you come out of turn 4, you're starting to think, I need to downshift for turn 1. And by the time you start moving to downshift, you're already there. You're already at turn 1. It is a crazy thing. And so you have to be thinking about that. And it's the same way with doing bank draws. You got to be thinking ahead of time. Okay, I know that this is coming up in 2 weeks. I better start getting ready for that. And if the way to do it the best is to coordinate with your project coordinator, your project manager, your GC, whatever. If it's me and I'm working on one of your projects, then I would be the one telling you, hey, okay, this is going to be done on Monday. And then we need to have it timed so that when we're done on Monday, that bank draw is being ordered that day or the next day at the latest. If they require an inspector to come out and look, then you really need to time it with the hard money lender to have their inspector come out. And inspectors will generally be out there the same day or the next day, and then you'll get your draw a couple of days after that in most cases. So don't have them come out if you're not done, because you're paying for that. Okay, $100, $200 every time they come out there. If you're dealing with a direct draw system where you're just providing pictures and all that, then when you're done, send them up and order that draw, and that draw will hit your bank account. And then from there, you can then get people paid, get materials bought, whatever the case may be. So as you're doing that, the funds are going to your account. They're going to your business account or your personal account, whatever you set up with the hard money lender. So typically, you now have to pay people. And if you're working with someone like me, that means you've got to get money to me that I can then get to them. So there's a process there of getting paid, unless you are physically going to hand checks to guys or pay them directly, which I recommend. It makes it easier and faster. If you've got guys that are doing weekly work, then they typically will be okay taking Zelle or Cash App, which we prefer Cash App. In that case, then you can send it over to my company, and then I will distribute it and keep track of it with the guys that way. If it is for materials, then that's typically going to be, if it's a big material buy, like flooring or appliances or tile, it's just easier to flow if you've got a contact with your GC or your group doing the work, to just tell them, hey, go buy the tile and I'll reimburse you, or go order it and then call me for a card. So another thing that you can do to help yourself out with your cash flow is if you can put things on credit during the project, like flooring, like tile, things you can buy at the flooring store or Home Depot or these stores that you can put up on credit, then that allows you to have more cash flow from your bank draw to use for the unexpecteds or the immediate needs, or to pay people that are on the crew that are doing the work. So that's a really important note that I just said about using credit to do that. You'll be able to get that bank draw in later. You'll get all the money back that you spent later at the end of the project. You pay the credit off at that point, and that's a good way to kind of have excess funds. So when you're doing this business, you will have times when your contractor or your project coordinator or manager will just need to go get stuff at Home Depot. They'll need to make a run to get an extra board or two, or some electrical wiring, or some plumbing parts, and those are little miscellaneous things that are in the budget, but they're not listed, miscellaneous plumbing that you need to kind of account for. And those will be things that generally, if you've got a good trusting relationship with them, they will go ahead. If they have the ability, they will go ahead and purchase those items, and then you can reimburse them every week or however often. Sometimes these guys that you're paying or that we're bringing on to do work are in need, and they don't have the funding to just spend $50 on anything. Sometimes they're literally paycheck, day-to-day paycheck kind of people. And the good thing about using those kind of people is they have urgency, they want to work, they work hard, and you can get a better deal. Okay, so we're dealing with some of that as well when it comes to the workers and them getting paid. All right, just in continuing to talk about materials and subs being paid out of the BankDraws system, like I said, when you really think about it, just kind of walk you through a mental picture of what this looks like. So typically, you hire a group of people. You can hire, a general contract turnkey guy who's got the big painted truck and all that. You're going to pay at the yin yang for that kind of work. Okay, so typically, one of the best ways I have found workers that do work on our projects is by going where they are. If I'm driving through a neighborhood where there's a lot of renovations and I see work going on, I get out of my car, my truck, and I go in there and meet them. Who are you? Oh, you're the tile guy. You're the flooring guy. You're the sheetrock guy. You're the texture guy. You're the painter. You're the carpenter. Okay, great. I got a whole list of people I need like that. Okay, now I haven't used it before, but I can generally know by looking at the property I'm in that they're doing work. I can inspect it real quick and go, yeah, this looks pretty good. And if they're working for another remodeler, they're probably pretty affordable. So I can kind of make some of those assumptions. And so, and you'll go through people, they'll change, they'll disappear on you. They'll go to Mexico for a month during the holidays and you won't know where they are and think they're dead. All this stuff happens. But luckily we have enough connections in the area to where we can bring in a group and say, okay, I'm going to pay you for phase one. And phase one is going to include these items: demo, fence repair, landscaping, whatever those items are. And I'm going to say, I need you to do it for $4,000. My budget might be $6,000, but I'm certainly going to try to shoot for less. They say, I'll do it for 4,500. Boom, got a deal. At that point, if I trust them and they need materials for some reason, I may give them some money up front to work. But generally I don't. I will say, I'll pay you at the end of your first day for that day, and then we'll figure out something on the back end. A lot of the people we work with, they've worked with us long enough to know that we come up with a number, they go do the work, and then we pay them at the end. Okay, I've got an AC guy. I've got a flooring guy that way. We've got tile guys that way. Got sheetrock guys that way, framing guys that we'll come up with a number. They get busy working, and then we pay them something. They almost always want something every week because these are guys that are week to week. So let's say we come up with a number that's $4,000 for demo, framing, and landscape work. It's going to take them a week to do that, or 2 weeks. But at the end of that first week, they're going to want some money. So this is, again, why to put things on credit you can to help save some of that money back, because you get better deals because cash speaks. So a perfect example is I had a guy come in who was a tile guy that was also a plumber. I said, I want you to do this whole bathroom, plumbing, everything. I want you to put in the pan. I want you to do all the plumbing. Then I want you to do the tile because you do tile. In my mind, I already knew that the tile work alone was going to be like $1,500, maybe even $2,000, probably $2,000 at least. And then the plumbing work, if I went and called a regular plumber, there'd be another $1,500. So I knew, for example, I was going to be about $3,500 for me to get that done another way. So I started out and I said, I'll give you $2,000. He's like, oh no, I can't do $2,000. Nobody do that. We finally ended up at $2,500. The reason that we ended up at $2,500, I said, I'll give you $1,000 right now, because I knew the guy, right? I knew he wasn't going to stiff me. I'll give you $1,000 right now. That guy needed the money just like anybody else. So he did it for $2,500. I saved $1,000 at least, maybe $1,500 going a different direction. You have to have that kind of money at hand. And so in cases like that, then that'll be cases if I'm managing the job or someone else is managing the job, you need to have those conversations, letting them know and giving them the permission to do things like that. You do that 10 times, you save $10,000 on your project. Okay. Cash speaks. So if I can work with an electrician or a plumber or a tile guy, flooring guy, and say, I will give you money right now. Right now, I'll give you money to get started today. So you have cash in your hand for lunch. Then a lot of times you can get even better deals and save money that way. So when we're working projects together, there'll be those times when I say, hey, I gave this guy $1,000. Here's the receipt, or whatever the case may be. I need to get reimbursed that. And you'll need to be able to do that with your guy. So this is the fun part of the business. It is like herding cats sometimes. You got all these people running around doing work. You've worked all these verbal deals with them. So many of these lenders and these people out there that, they think you've got all these documents between. No, it's not the reality. If I've got one main contractor, yeah, I'll have some type of agreement with him if I can. But a lot of times it's, hey, Billy, come over here and do my plumbing for me for $500. Great, boom, it's done. You're not sitting down and writing out a contract with each guy, and that's not how these guys are driving around. You see them on the freeways with their sign half off the truck, or their phone number not even legible, beat up truck, wheels wobbling down the freeway. That's the guys that are going to save you money. And most of the time, those are the guys that actually know how to do the work the best. So your bank draw system's not as simple as just, okay, on Mondays I do this. It's not. In this business, one thing I tell people when they ask me, for example, let's set a time to meet or let's set an appointment, I just laugh. I go, no, my life, it used to operate that way when I had the corporate job and have my own business. It was like a corporate job, but not in the real estate world, not in remodeling or construction. It is very much hair on fire, do what you can when you can kind of business. And so things come up that have to be addressed. There's a plumbing leak. I mean, I remember just an example when we were working on a house out in North Dallas, and the guy that was doing some grading in the backyard where a pool had been that we filled in hit the gas line with his tractor. Now, do you think I changed all of my plans for the day when that happened? Yeah, I've got a flame of gas shooting out of the backyard of a house that my guys are working on, and it's all hell breaks loose. Fire department shows up, all the workers run off because they didn't, it was insane. That'll cancel your whole day when that happens. And those things happen in this business. So be as organized as you can, but know that the draw says there's no real routine to anything. You have to do it when you got to do it. You got to be readily available to do it. But it's also what makes the business fun and challenging and energetic and exciting. And then you get to the end and you see this beautiful property and you look at it and you put it on the market, and then you start getting showings and interest. And all of a sudden you're like, man, I want to do this again and again. This is pretty cool. So hope that helps you understand a little bit about the budgets, the scope of work outline, and dealing with bank draws and payments to vendors and material buys and workers and subs and contractors and all that stuff. Okay. So there's a lot to learn. You learn a lot of this on the job training wise, and hope that helps you kind of get a heads up as to what's going on if you are going to be overseeing for your first time, your first project, or maybe your first time dealing with a hard money lender in the bank draw system. I hope that helps. Let's go do this. Let's have some fun. Peace out. We'll talk to you soon.